Hey, what's up, guys? So this is going to be the Argentinian League Magistral I, and this is the second round. So I'm up against Daniel Olivares from Argentina. So I'm playing white for this round. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so let's get this game underway. So I'm not too familiar with Daniel's game, but let me just go with the perpendicular opening and let's see how. Okay, so he's played the rose variation, so gonna go with the typical rose counter. Let's take a look at how he'll play. So right now it's still within book. He's just chipping off to the edge of these three discs, going for the center cut or maybe a cross. So I'll just go for the usual book sequence, just nestling my disc in the center in a diagonal manner. Okay, so he's gone for the standard book sequence, so I'll go with this regrouping. It's quite a standard book for leading up to rows variation, so let's see how that goes. So the typical book sequence would be to play d7, which I think many players who actually play rows opening would be familiar with that variation. So let me just go with the f7 approach, something that I would like to call the Sealy Rose counter or variation. So Ben Sealy for the Sealy Rose counter variation. I think it's a fairly effective way to counter against Rose players, to just offer up a certain variation so that you don't end up going into their book perhaps. Okay, so the opponent has chosen to jump into the center, which is probably somewhat a standard sequence to actually counter with if you're not really familiar with this book. So I think the strength of this shape is that I would lead up to just taking a quick cross to the diagonal and allowing him to jump into the center while I just go to the edge and wrap around the shape. So let's just go ahead with this move over here to just form up a feed. And once he jumps into the center block, I would probably cut either one of d7, d8 or e8, basically to just form a chip to the edge. Okay, so he's played a little bit of an unconventional response. I was expecting him to go right into e7, but he didn't. Instead, he chose a chip over to b5, which is a fairly strong move. If I were to regroup, he will be able to capture multiple tempo along the edges just by playing c8, d8, and maybe eventually e8. So it's important to actually protect this tempo. So given that I'm looking to protect the edge, I should be capturing the edge to c8. That's one of my top choices right now. Um, Maybe another option would be to just cut into the center of this by playing b6. But b6 and he goes c8. That might be a problem. If I play to c8 right now, I can still play b6 in the future. So let me just go to c8 quickly, just to capture towards the edge. And probably anticipating that he jumps right in over here. And if he does, I'll probably just follow with d8. If he goes with e7, just go with d8. He'll probably go for the quiet f8. Okay, so he did go to e7. So right now e7 is played. The next few moves for him, the danger is for him to actually play to d8 or maybe e8. So if I protect it, that should work better for me. Or alternatively, I could go to the earlier plan b6 just to nestle my disc in the center. Looking at the tempo wise, it might be more wise to actually just defend this edge first, and he'll probably follow with a quiet f8. Okay, let's defend with d8. So if he does go to f8, the natural response here would be to go to b6 and just continue to occupy the center. Okay, so that is probably quite a standard sequence. Right now the fear is that he goes to e8, I'm forced to cover to g8, and then he occupies a6, which would then probably pose as a problematic shape for myself. Okay, so he does grab that, so I'll be forced to take g8 for fear of losing tempo, so I don't have a choice. And he does probably go for the a6 move right now. So after that exchange, it's probably going to be tough for me. Uh, Probably a4 is the first instinct to establish c6 so that I can re-access over here to f3, which would probably be a strong move for me. And also, if I were to play a4 and he plays a5, it's perfectly fine for me to grab a7 in response to the edge. So that could be a potential move to a4, and if I move a4, he goes b4 or c4, either one works. I could still go for the move that I was looking for at f3. So I think besides that a4 selection, I could probably consider c4 maybe, but c4 gives up a quiet b4, so that isn't too ideal for me. Some other options would be maybe e2, but e2 gives up way too many tempos to him to the top right, to the top, and of course leading down to the right hand side. So I think a4 would be the natural progression here. So let's go for a4. So now it's almost quite an edge play situation for me. Um, So it's definitely important to take note of the poison moves. I think Daniel is playing very well. Okay, so right now he's gone to the X square, which is somewhat surprising for sure. That is quite an early X square, and considering that the support over here is, or the poison is actually pretty thin, that was pretty daring for him to actually jump immediately to the X square over here. So this should be interesting. So just looking at the shape right now, I can't touch any of the moves in the lower left region. So um, b4 stands out as the quick instinct base move. He took away the c6 disc of mine, which I really wanted to actually access f3. So that's a very good maneuver by him. So right now it's becoming a bit challenging to actually find good moves. Probably I would have to start considering e2. So if I were to go with b4 and he goes to c4, c3 would be fairly poisoned, but could allow me to remove both c7 and also the e5 disc, so he wouldn't have that diagonal cut across. So that's one option. e2 definitely looks way too terrible. It would give up too many tempos to him to the top. So I think b4 is the expected response and also the natural sequence to play to. So if he were to play to a5, I would be able to then go to c3, anticipating a c4 response so that I can go to b3. But it's a higher chance that he probably just jumps right into c4 right now. And probably it'll be a huge dilemma for me whether to go into c3 just for tempo's sake. So he does go for the c4 move as expected. So right now it's a bit difficult for me to decide. I think c3 definitely is an option, but c3 he might follow with a3 cut out and would give me a lot of problems to the top. Probably not the ideal case of poisoning myself. If I were to go to e2 right now, which seems like the only viable option right now, e2 he will probably follow with maybe f2 or f1. Either one gives him quite a lot of moves. So right now I'm a little bit in trouble. It's going to be really tough. Alternatively, I could consider a5. Control this mini diagonal over here, and then try to capture the d5 disk that would give me access to f3 again. So I think after looking a few moves ahead, it seems like a5 is probably better for me to split the disk up so that I can try to create more moves if possible. Problem with playing a5 is that most of the moves on top will get poisoned. So it would then obstruct the moves on top. If I were to go on top first, white, black, and then I would have huge problems. So I think a4, a5 probably result in future problems. e2 would almost give me immediate problems. So let's go with a5. Probably not the best of moves, but let's see how this goes. He can probably respond to a7, or he can take a3. Either one would probably work for him. For me, I have a lot of work to do. Okay, he does take a quick a7, which is a bit surprising because he controls this main diagonal. I mean, this mini diagonal over here. So right now, I'm going to jump in to f3. That would probably make sense. Or I could consider c3. f3, he might follow g3, which would be good for me. If I were to play c3, this would poison f3, and it's unlikely that he removes c3. So f3 being more removable, I'll go ahead with f3. So right now, if he goes to a3, it's probably a great way for him to actually trap me. Because my only move to the top is poisoned by the b5 disk. If he goes a3, I would have to follow with maybe b3. And if he goes to c2, I would be forced to play out the poison move. And then I'll be hanging on one last move maybe, in terms of tempo as well. Not too sure whether I would have enough moves to actually turn this around. Right now, black seems to be in a very good position, I guess. Leading definitely. I feel probably losing 6 to 8 discs at this point in time. So he does play the a3 move. That's a very good move by Daniel. Okay, so after he's played a3, one option is also for me to play to d2 right now. So if I played d2, he would be forced to play up to the right, or he would just play a quick sweep across over here. So if I were to go to b3, and if he just takes c3, I would have a lot of issues continuing the game from there. So I think playing d2 first would open up opportunities for me, potentially, more than b3. So let's go with d2. Form a block, control this mini diagonal, and try to get him to go to the right so that he creates more moves for me. If he does take a clear sweep to d1, then I can suspend one disc or hang it at c2 perhaps, just to control this horizontal row. Just trying to hang on to one move as much as possible. So right now only 7 minutes remaining. It is becoming a little tough over here. Another option for him is probably e2 as well. That could be a way for him. Okay, so he does play the clean sweep across. That's a fair move to play. Clearly, I have to suspend one disc over here, and he might just grab it, and then I'll jump into c3. Okay, so let's go with the c2 move. It has to be c2 at this point in time because I'm just running out of moves at the moment. Not too sure whether he's extended his lead over me, but yeah, he could probably go to either b3 or he could jump right into e2. Either one would be likely for him. If he goes to e2, I'll go to c1. If he goes to b3, I'll move to c3 and probably just try to hang on to tempo as much as possible. So bearing in mind that I only have 7 minutes left, it's going to be tight in the end game, hopefully. So just getting a sense that I'm definitely losing at this point in time, but sometimes when you're losing just a couple of discs, it might be pretty obvious compared to the very terrible ones where to play. So it could help me a little bit on time. Sometimes when you're winning just by a little bit, the win line could be tricky as well. So hopefully that could work in my favor somehow. Okay, so this is a bit surprising. F2 is a bit surprising in terms of the move. So F2 would probably require the same response as if he were to play E2, in a sense that I have to play C1 either ways, just to try to gain tempo and control this one disc diagonal maybe over here. Let's go to C1. If he takes, that might be a problem. If he does take B1, might actually be losing out a number of moves and therefore would be trapped. Probably go with F1, and if he goes to, let's go with B3, just to force a response over here. That might not be the best move, but things are definitely looking very tough for me. I'm running out of moves. If you were to jump in right now to C3, grab this. Basically, if he jumps in, I have to feed off and jump into the X square. If he jumps into E1, essentially, I've effectively run out of moves, actually. Because he can close off the game with parity to the bottom left. It's looking extra difficult for me, for sure. Yeah, so there is a parity, there is a way to seal the game with parity. Okay, but he didn't pick it up. So that is my opportunity to feed off this and then jump for the wedge. Wondering if that would work for me with that response. Not too sure if he can play an X square diagonal control that would finish me off. Like white, black, maybe. That could be a challenging sequence. So right now that move might have been chased up. There is a slight chance for me right now due to parity. He probably missed E1. So just about 4 minutes left each. This game is proving to be quite tough. So I think right now it's also tough for him to decide where to break out of the wall. So he does go for that extreme cut. Okay, that's a fair move. White, black maybe? White, black, white, white, black, white, black, white. That could be an option for me. White, black, white, black. No. White, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white. That could be a huge issue for me in terms of parity. So I have to go with this move, I guess. I have to squeeze in for that move just to try to survive with parity. He's definitely going to go for that sweep over here. So black, white, black, white, black, white, black. Sorry, black. I mean white, black, white, black. What? Then I would have to try to survive with parity as much as possible. Okay, he doesn't play that move to sweep, which is unexpected in terms of the follow-up. So I'll just grab the corner right now, I guess, while I still can. So I'll grab the corner. So he does take that, cover by parity, just slot in and follow. Not too sure whether he's seen some overwhelming win by black sweeping from the top to the right hand side, that he gave up this corner. So this corner is fairly weak in terms of the remaining squares, because the remaining squares are just vertically aligned from this corner. So there isn't that much influence, that much value for this corner. So that's fair on his end. He has this strong edge to sweep this way. Ultimately, I'm just hoping for parity to work out for me in the last move, when he has to play ultimately to b7 and then b8, and then I get a8. So that could work in my favor. So right now the goal is just to finish up parity to the right and hope for the last move to help me win back sufficient number of discs. So if I were him, I'll probably go with h2. So I'm thinking just to cut into the center, that should suffice. Considering I have one nestled disc, which is key, b2, retaining access to ultimately the corner over here, that should help. Right now, black probably h4, and then me, h2, h3, h5. He sweeps the diagonal across. Grab this, he sweeps the entire row. Not too sure if I will have enough discs. Looking at this, okay. So I have a quiet move over here as an option actually. So I have to count. 21 plus 3, 24. 24 minus 1, 23. 23 plus 3, that'll be 26. 26, he sweeps back. 22. So I'll grab this. 3 more. 4 more. 26. 26, he sweeps off 26, third, 25. If I were to go with the expected sequence, 26, 23, probably not as great as this. Let's go with this sequence, perhaps. Since this is it's a quiet move against this entire lead diagonal, so this should be the better one based on natural parity. If he takes h3, I'll just go for h2. If he takes h2, I'll go for h5, and then he'll probably go down to h7. I'll be able to go for that easy h3. So hopefully I should have sufficient number of this. I'm estimating somewhere between 35 to 37 maybe. So we'll be going with h5 with this mini diagonal control. Going for h3, jumps in, basically sweep up and take the corner. Okay, so I have 39. Good game. I think you missed the win there.